When you think about it, BMW have never shied away from designing cars that divide opinion. And the most recent one over the last couple of years is definitely this one. It's the 2 Series Grand Coupe. Think of the Bangle era, think of the E63 6 Series. They all divided opinion and got people talking about them. But as of late, this is the one that people are talking about for lots of reasons. First of all, it's front wheel drive. It's a 3-cylinder 1.5 engine, but it's badged on this model as a 118. And then you've got the rear. And to be fair, in this car, in black, with the right wheels, it's a perfect example of how the colour and the alloy setup really do matter. And this bit is the thing that has people just not sure. It's quite square, quite straight down for a BMW. There's no slope at all, despite it being a Grand Coupe. But others comment about, oh, that's different. They haven't done that before. And they don't seem to hate it. So which camp are you in? The love, the not quite sure, or no way, not going there. Looks on the boot aside, there's one thing we do properly in this channel, and that's investigate things. This is proper motoring vlogging or something like that. The boot around here is quite a narrow opening. Now, the rear seats do go down, which is great, and there's a little removable shelf here that you can also keep in the car and just use as an invisible hiding area for superheroes and, you know, stuff. But I brought a measuring tape. This opening on the boot is 44 centimeters, if I'm being generous. And across, it's about 108. So never mind how the back end looks, it's going to be hard to fit certain things in here. Now, they will go in deep, but unless they're that size, they're not fitting, buddy. We're going to need a bigger boot. They've done sound things like include a 12-volt charger and a little net where you can use a pocket to store stuff away, and there's shopping bag hook holders. So the practicality is good. It's just that mouth. It's just not quite massive. And the boot's not that easy to close either. A little known fact that you may or may not be aware of, the 2 Series Grand Coupe is based on the new 1 Series chassis. So inside the space should be similar, or is it? It would be unfair of me to say this is strictly a 2-seater in the back. It's not, but your middle passenger isn't exactly going to have a great time of it because the transmission tunnel is here and this middle part for the bench is a little bit smaller than the outer 2 seats. 2 Isofix back here, 1 in the front, which means obviously you get 3 in total. Pretty decent. The armrest when it's down makes the 2 bigger passengers feel very, very comfortable and smug because they'll have 2 cup holders. Now, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but the windows open this much. It's shocking stuff altogether. Does anybody know, is this some EU regulation that says you can only open a window like this much in a car in 2020? Also, how do you be a cool kid and hang your arm at the window eating an ice cream on a summer's day, because that gets sore after like 10 seconds? Answers in the comment section. Now, behind here you get 2 USB-C charging ports, 2 air vents and netting, and they've put hard plastic bits on the back of these chairs for those of you with kids who think the back of daddy's driving seat is a football. As long as you like the colour dark, you'll be fine in here. Now, headroom, the sloping roof line, as stylish as it is on the outside, if you're over 6 foot, this is probably going to get a little bit tight. You can buy one in Ireland for the same price as a very well spec'd Mark 8 Golf. 35,795, that's the price of this car starting in Ireland. There's petrol models, diesel options. You can get it in a 118, you can get it in a 220 diesel, and for those of you who've never heard of an M2 coupe, then you can get a 235i. In this car, you're looking at Apple CarPlay and Android, which is wireless. It basically works off a network that you connect up on your phone, and it syncs with the car, and it works every time really well. There's no more need for cables, in fact, because there's charging plate here as well if your phone is compatible. There's also still though a USB old style connection and a USB-C under the armrest, which is okay. It's not a huge space down here, but it's all right. Again, from here down is lifted out of the 1 Series and the 3 Series. The gear shifter the exact same, even the 330i that I reviewed earlier on the channel, which you can watch up there. It's straight out of it, to be honest with you. The main difference for me is the screen in the 2 Series is quite a bit smaller, and it would just feel a bit more plush if that was bigger. But it's touchscreen, it works easily, it's very quick, the nav is good, very detailed. In fact, it's one of the best navs that I've seen in quite a while. And the finish is okay. I mean, it doesn't feel 5 Series finish, but it's pretty good, and anybody who has never sat into a BMW before is going to feel wowed. Those of you watching who have experience of the more expensive M Sports, the 5 Series and above, and including the new 3 Series, it'll be a little bit underwhelming. The seats are good in this one. You can let in and out the bolsters depending on how much cake you've had at the weekend. There's a little bit of half leather going on. The steering wheel, for example, is straight out of a 5 Series SE model. It's quite big actually, so it's quite satisfying to hold it. The dials in this car are needle based, so again, if you go for the M Sport model and you pay for different bits, you'll get the more digital display. It is worth it, I think, because it's just light years ahead, so something to consider. And the door bins are absolutely massive. You can fit a large bottle of water. Same with the door bins in the back, actually. They've really been very generous with them. You have standard cruise control. There's an adaptive plate on the front of the car, but it must be for, again, cars with the option ticked. You'll get things like the news and online weather. That again, just it's impressive when you see it and you see how great yet another weekend in Ireland is looking. And you'll also get your news updates, so you can keep up to date with everything that's going on in this fantastic world of ours. Overall though, I think passengers are going to sit into this car, as I said, particularly maybe people new to BMW or those who are trading down. They don't need a bigger car anymore, but just can't quite get their head around the idea of a hatchback of the 1 Series. I think sitting behind here, you'll feel relatively happy. It truly will just depend on your experience of the more expensive models in the range, and particularly M Sport. So to some, I totally get, especially purists, that a front-wheel drive, 3-cylinder, 1.5 petrol engine that's badged as a 118 just is going to be something that BMW purists can't get their heads around. But for those normal buyers who were quite happy to own a 316i back in the noughties, well, this is going to be a perfect solution to get you into a BMW at less than 40 grand, and even at less than 40 grand if you've put some options on the list. Much like the 1 Series, they've managed to hide the fact that it's a 3-cylinder pretty well. As I pull out of a junction here, even accelerating hard, to the untrained ear, you wouldn't even know that that's a 3-cylinder engine. It's quite a satisfying growl out of it, to be honest with you. Fuel economy wise, about 8 litres per 100 kilometres. That's what seems to be the norm. It's a 7-speed automatic gearbox in this car. The manual probably does feel a little bit more engaging to drive, but to be honest with you, it suits this engine, it suits this car. It's quite comfortable as well, even on these upgraded wheels. The damping sometimes is a little bit harsh. If you go over bumps and stuff, it just feels a bit, not in a run flat kind of way, I don't mean that. Just kind of a thud of certain potholes and imperfections in the road, but overall it's a very smooth car, and whatever they've done to BMWs, whether it's the changing of the tyre setup, it certainly seems to have made the whole range drive an awful lot better, and it's just more suited to the wonderful roads that we have in Ireland. 60 kilometers per hour here. I know that because I have an instrument display that tells me if I'm going over the speed limit with the speed sign recognized in the dashboard, and that really does make you hyper aware of the speed limits around you, and no doubt makes you a safer driver. Even going uphill without extra passengers in the car, of course, it's not struggling under any load, it's just bringing me up without any sort of a fuss. So 3 cylinders, I know it's a strange thing to get your head around. Overall though, it's quite an unremarkable car. It does everything well. It's reasonably engaging to drive, despite that it's front wheel drive. There's no torque steer. There's still enough BMW feedback through the steering wheel that they're famous for. Like, you really, that bit is box ticked. If you can get over the outside looks, perhaps you love them. Again, as I said earlier on, this colour and wheels setup is a classic example of, you shouldn't always judge a car's appearance on the initial photograph you might see of it. It's not M Sport either. This is the Sport model of the car. So M Sport, again, aesthetically is going to look better, probably a little bit lower in terms of handling and stuff, but this car does handle pretty well. Any sort of spirited driving is quite enjoyable to drive, and you know, for the size of car, it's quite nimble on its toes. Overall, the 2 Series Grand Coupe, it's a reasonable effort at this type of car. It's nothing that an A3 Saloon or the Volkswagen Passat isn't going to be able to necessarily do for you, but if you're after a BMW badge at quite a reasonable price, remember, €36,000. It's not exactly big money to have a BMW on your driveway, and for a lot of people who won't be bothered by the front wheel drive, the 3-cylinder engine, that really is quite a big thing to be able to brag to the neighbours about. And as long as BMWs are that desirable, they're not going to have a problem selling a car like the 2 Series Grand Coupe. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this review. If you have any comments or questions, as always, please do leave them below, and I will catch you on the next episode. Cheers.